Ventura County Sheriff's Office says at least 11 people, including a sheriff's deputy, were shot at the Borderline Bar and Grill in Thousand Oaks, about 40 miles northwest of Los Angeles. Ventura County Sheriff Jeff Dean has just started a news conference. Let's listen in.
Okay. So, to provide you with the latest information on this incident, I want to introduce on my left Sheriff Jeff Dean. Excuse me. This is the Sheriff of Ventura County. The name is spelled G-E-O-F-F. Last name is spelled D-E-A-N. On my right is Ryan Young. He's a special agent in charge of the Los Angeles field office of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. His name is spelled R-Y-A-N. Last name is Y-O-U-N-G. Also on my right is L.D. Maples. He's the chief of the Coastal Division of the California Highway Patrol. First name is spelled L.D. Last name Maples, M-A-P-L-E-S. So right now I'm going to hand it over to Sheriff Dean to give you the latest.
Good morning. You're all experienced reporters, and you understand this is a dynamic, ongoing investigation and a tragic situation. So I'll go through the details. I'll share with you everything I have, and we'll answer all the questions you may have. Our partners from the FBI and the Highway Patrol will also answer any additional questions you might have. Tonight at 11:20 p.m., Sheriff's 911 received multiple calls of shots being fired at the Borderline Bar and Grill in Thousand Oaks. Our first sheriff's unit arrived on scene. 3 minutes later, there was also 2 Highway Patrol officers on scene who had been on a local traffic stop and heard the traffic and responded right away. Approximately 3 minutes later, a Highway Patrol officer and a sheriff's sergeant made entry into the borderline because they heard shots being fired and felt there might be additional victims inside. Upon going through the front door, the sheriff's sergeant was struck multiple times with gunfire. The Highway Patrol officer stepped back and secured the perimeter until additional units arrived, and he rescued the sheriff's sergeant out of the line of gunfire. When additional units arrived, including SWAT personnel, agencies from the Oxnard Police Department, the Simi Valley Police Department, the Ventura Police Department, and additional officers from the Highway Patrol, they made entry into the Borderline Bar and Grill. They found 11 victims that had been killed. The suspect, who we believe was the only suspect, was dead inside. And there were multiple other victims of different levels of injury inside that were rescued from the scene and taken to local hospitals. In addition to the victims inside, and the numbers are upwards of 10 to 12, additional victims with minor injuries fled the scene on their own and took themselves to local hospitals. We have not identified the suspect yet. Our partners from the FBI were on scene almost immediately to help us with the identification process and with crime scene processing. We have no idea if there is a terrorism link to this event or not. As you know, these are ongoing investigations, and that information will come out as soon as we're able to determine exactly who the suspect was and what motive he might have had for this horrific event. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Well, the Sergeant Hillis died at the... The sergeant passed away at the hospital about an hour ago. I only mentioned it might be terrorists because that's where we all go these days when we have multiple shootings like this. There's no reason for it, and we have this horrific death. I have nothing to lead me to believe or the FBI that there is any terrorism link here, but we certainly will look at that option.
Were there other devices inside?
I'm sorry?
Devices inside?
What do you mean by devices?
Reports that people thought there were smoke bombs that were going off.
There's some initial reports that a smoke bomb might have been used. We have not found anything yet. We have called in our bomb team to go in through, and we have a couple bomb dogs here that are checking the area, but we haven't found any other explosive device or confirmation that there was a smoke device.
What does that make you think if there was a smoke device?
Hindsight and speculation is pretty easy. You would think if someone throws a smoke device, it was certainly more of a planned attack and not something spontaneous.
Also, the sergeant, how long was he on the force? Anything about him?
Sergeant Hillis was on the force for 29 years, was looking to retire in the next year or so. He was a Moore Park resident and is survived by his wife and his son.
What is his name?
Ron Helus, Helus.
Sir, 1,000
What kind of weapon was it?
Well, the question is, Thousand Oaks, the Safe Committee, what do I make of this? I make that it's a horrific incident. It's part of the horrors that are happening in our country and everywhere, and I think it's impossible to put any logic or any sense to the senseless.
How did the suspect die?
With officers, or did he take his own life?
Well, when the officers made entry, the suspect was already deceased.
Was he included in the killer?
There were 11 victims. I will not count the suspect as a victim, the suspect, and then Sergeant Helus.
So 11 victims.
11 victims, the suspect makes 12, and Sergeant Hillis makes 13. No, we have not.
What about the weapon? Was it weapon?
We have not found any type of assault rifle inside the location. The only weapon we have found that we believe was used was a handgun, but it's still early on and we haven't gone through the scene in detail yet. It would appear that way, but it's certainly well too early to know if he actually did take his own life. Well, certainly, we have to wait for the medical examiner to get here. We have to do family notification, so candidly, it'll be hours and hours.
Do you know if the suspect had visited this bar before? Has anybody said it?
We don't know anything about the suspect. We haven't talked to anybody that had any contact with him prior.
Lived here?
Well, I actually have no idea who he is. We don't know anything about him yet.
What about the ages of the victims? The ages of the victims? Can you tell us that they were young?
I actually don't know what the ages were. It is a nightclub, so I would, speculate they were probably in the 21 to 26-year-old age group.
Do you find about if active student training played a role in Sergeant, going in and trying to bust the suspect immediately?
There's no doubt that the change in how we handle active shooters played a role. Sergeant Helus and the Highway Patrol officer first on scene, they knew they had to take action, and they went in and did what they had to do.
One more time. 13 people down.
Yes, 13. We don't know how many are injured because they went to separate hospitals. I'm going to speculate, given what I've heard, somewhere between 10 and 15 additional injuries. And we don't believe there might be one additional gunshot victim, but we think there are other injuries, people trying to escape, breaking out windows, and doing different things.
When you see these shootings happen across the country, did you ever think that it would be happening right here in this country?
I've been a cop for 41 years, and I never thought I would see the things around the country that would happen. But I've learned it doesn't matter what community you're in. It doesn't matter how safe your community is. It can happen anywhere. Because obviously, for someone to do this, they have to have some sort of mental illness. And sadly, we have people with mental illness all over the country.
Sheriff, were any threats to anybody in the bar? Any kind of indication something like this would happen?
We have actually no information about that at all. But again, we're very early on in the investigation.
Do you know what happened? We heard that he went inside, shot the security guard, and then kind of went in and started shooting. Is that what happened?
We actually don't know. I mean, we're interviewing multiple witnesses, but I can say no, we haven't got everybody together yet to really put that timeline together, and we'll certainly provide that as soon as we can get something.
Sheriff, do you have any thoughts at this time on the origin of the sheriff?
You know, it's so tragic, and losing Ron, you know, we go to the gym together, work out together, is horrific and terrible, and it saddens our heart. But there's also parents of those 11 other victims in there whose hearts are ripped out tonight. And I know there's parents wondering, oh my gosh, you know, what was one of my children in there, or was it my sister or my brother? So there's just no way to describe this. It saddens us all, and it tears at our hearts and emotions, as it should. And if we ever get to the point where it doesn't, then there's something wrong with us.
Sheriff, can you talk about after Parkland? There's a lot of questions about police not being active enough, and it does sound like the sergeant really was proactive. What was the thought process in the department after Parkland? How have things changed?
Actually, it changed for us after Columbine, years and years ago, and we trained with our fire department for active shooting, and our officers know when you get to a scene and there's two of you, or even just one of you, and there's shooting going on, you go in. And that's a change of philosophy from what it used to be. And we worked so well in our county. The Highway Patrol was here. When they made entry the second time tonight, there were Simi Valley officers, there were Oxnard officers, there were Ventura officers, there were sheriff's deputies, and there were Highway Patrol officers. Everyone comes together to solve the problem. So the time frame, so the first deputies arrived on scene at 11:22. They made entry approximately 4 minutes later. That's when Sergeant Hillis was shot. And it was, and I don't have the exact timeline, it was probably close to 15 minutes. They didn't hear any shots fired before they regrouped, got additional officers, and went back in. And there were people hiding in restrooms. There were people hiding in attics.
Do you have an idea of how many people were at the moment?
I have no idea.
Sheriff, what other scenes are you and your law enforcement partners investigating in relation to what happened here?
What other locations? None that I know of, but certainly when we find out who the suspect is, we'll go to his location and we'll work with our bureau partners to see if there's a connection there. But at this time, there's none other that I know of.
Was the suspect armed with multiple weapons, or was it just one?
Right now, as far as we know, there was only one handgun, but that could certainly change as we do a more thorough search of the building.
And can you clarify, you said the suspect was down when police entered the building?
The suspect was down with a gunshot wound when the officers went into the building, yes.
The deputy was shot by the suspect after making...
we don't know who shot the deputy.
Do you know who shot the victim? Was it a self-inflicted?
We don't know who shot anybody at this point.
Can you describe the suspect?
I probably shouldn't comment on that at this time. It would be a total guess. It's a horrific scene in there. There is blood everywhere, and the suspect is part of that. And I didn't want to get that close and disturb the scene and possibly jeopardize the investigation.
They said like people were trapped inside.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Did the witnesses say they were trapped inside, or like, I mean, what was their reaction?
They're being interviewed by our investigators. I honestly don't know exactly what they said at this point. I wanted to get that information as soon as I could to you, and we'll continue to follow up. I have no idea what happened inside there.
Is that the sergeant?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Is there a message you want to send to his family?
I've met with them and talked to them. We spent time. I made sure I talked to them before we released a name.
When can we get another update with everything that's going on?
Well, by the time, I would say, an hour and a half maybe. I don't want to waste your time and have you come up and I don't have anything. You know, if we can get information about what the witnesses said inside or any additional on the suspect, we'll have our PIOs let you know. But I don't want to waste your time by bringing you if we don't have anything new.
How many other mass shootings have you had in the county?
Mass shoot? I don't remember in my 41 years having a mass shooting. Ron was a hard-working, dedicated sheriff sergeant. He was totally committed. He gave his all, and tonight, as I told his wife, he died a hero because he went in to save lives, to save other people.
Sheriff, one question here, and for those parents who are waking up children, relatives, friends, what should they do right now?
I believe we have a victims hotline. We do. And the PIOs will give you the victims hotline number where they can call to check and just make sure.
And were they transported? Were they all transported?
They went to multiple hospitals. Okay, thank you.
That was Ventura County Sheriff Jeff Dean talking about the deadly shooting in a bar near Los Angeles. He said he described it as a horrific scene and said it was impossible to put any logic to the senseless. He revealed that the gunman killed 12 people, including a sheriff's sergeant. Liana Goladriga joins us now in Studio 57, and Carter Evans is on the scene in Thousand Oaks and was at that news conference. Carter, what stood out to you from what the sheriff had to say?
Well, you know, the scene that he's described in there is very much the scene that we heard from witnesses and people who were inside. They say it all happened just before 11:30, and one particular witness told me that she saw this gunman come in and initially fire shots at the security guard before he just opened fire inside this place, the Borderline Bar and Grill. She said he had a handgun and he reloaded multiple times. So it was a very active situation. She said people were running all over the place, trampling each other to try and get out of here. People were going out the back. What people had done was taking bar stools, throwing them out the windows so they could escape out the windows. They were hiding outside, hiding behind bushes. And then after the shooting stopped, after several minutes, it was a scramble to try and reunite with the people they came there with. This was a college night at this bar. There are several colleges around here. We hear there might have been as many as a couple hundred students inside. They were having a good time, and then all of a sudden they're running for their lives here. What do we know about this shooter? Not much from the sheriff at this point. The witness did tell me that she said that he was wearing all black. He did have a mask on, but it was only covering the lower part of his face, and he had a black ball cap on as well. But that's the best that she could do as far as a description. Whether or not he was targeting anyone specific, that is unknown at this time. But as the sheriff said, 11 people inside the bar killed. The 12th person killed was that sheriff's sergeant, and then the 13th person, the gunman himself, had a gunshot wound. Sheriff said they're not sure who shot him, but it is possible that he died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. This is still a very active scene out here right now. Investigators are still arriving. We've got the FBI, the ATF here right now. A few minutes ago, just off to the side of where I'm standing, I saw investigators going down the embankment with flashlights, presumably looking for more victims in the bushes outside. So they're still trying to piece together exactly what happened here and certainly come up with a motive and try and understand what was behind this shooting that occurred here about 40 miles northwest of Los Angeles.
Carter, there was also some information that there were smoke bombs or some kind of diversionary device that the shooter might have deployed. Did any of the witnesses talk about that?
We've heard a lot of talk about that. One of the witnesses did tell me that there was a lot of smoke inside the bar. She didn't know specifically if there was a smoke bomb used, but she did confirm that there was a lot of smoke and it was very difficult to see inside there. She described a scene of chaos with people scrambling over each other to try and get out of this place, gunshots going off in all directions. But at the same time, while people are trying to escape, she said she saw this gunman take multiple magazines out of his jacket and reload several times. We've heard some descriptions as many as 30 shots fired and other descriptions with possibly more shots as well. And we are going to be getting more information as the morning progresses here, and the sheriffs and investigators who are here at the scene begin to learn more about what occurred inside just a couple hours ago.
Carter, there were reports that at least one of the witnesses there heard the gunman shout something. Are you getting confirmation of that from others that you've talked to?
Well, the witnesses I've been talking to say that they heard lots of shouting, but they didn't hear anything specific. It didn't seem that they couldn't tell if he was yelling at anyone specifically or if it was other people yelling in the bar. They said there was a lot of chaos, a lot of people screaming, a lot of people yelling. It was hard to make out what was said.
And Carter, we don't obviously know a motive yet, but we should once again reiterate that this Borderline Bar and Grill on Wednesday nights specifically caters to college students, which means that they let people in as young as 18 years old.
Yes, there were young people here. We talked to a girl who was 19 years old who was out here celebrating with her friends tonight. And again, there is no real understanding about why this happened. This was a Western night. It was a very popular night. There were a lot of people here in their cowboy attire. And we saw people reuniting with friends out here. And again, we're just probably 100 feet away from the Borderline Bar and Grill here. We saw these victims coming out. It's fairly chilly out here tonight, probably about 50 degrees. They're coming out of the bar in the clothes that they were in. Friends coming from different colleges and the areas around here bringing jackets and blankets for them to keep them warm as people try and reconnect with everyone that they came with here. We talked with one girl who said that she was able to reconnect. She came with about 10 people. She was able to reconnect with 8 of them, but she still hasn't been able to get in touch with 2 of the people that she came with, so she's very concerned.
And Carter, describe Thousand Oaks a little bit to us. They say the venue was about 2,500 square feet. It seems rather large. What is the community like in which this is taking place?
Thousand Oaks is one of those. It's one of those bedroom communities of Los Angeles. It's about 40 miles from downtown Los Angeles, on the direction as you're heading north to Santa Barbara. This is I would say a somewhat suburban community. There are several colleges nearby. That's why this place was so particularly popular with college students. As you said, Wednesday night, college night at the Border Bar and Grill.
And Carter, I understand you have some eyewitnesses there with you who were in the Borderline when the shooting started. Yeah,
we did talk to a couple of eyewitnesses, and again, the best description that we've got of the shooter who opened fire was that he was wearing all black. He had a mask on, but it was only covering the lower part of his face, and he was wearing a black hat. The person that we spoke to said that they only saw him with a pistol, and the sheriff's investigators seem to confirm that at this point, that there may have only been a pistol involved. At least that's what they've found here at this point.
And I believe we may have some eyewitnesses there with you. Correct me if I'm wrong. Cole Knapp and Matt Wennerstrom?
Yes, and I actually want to talk to someone here. You were inside when this shooting occurred. What's your name, and tell me what it was like inside there as this shooting was going on.
My name is Matt Wennerstrom, and it was just a regular night here. I come here almost every Wednesday. It's college night, local bar. You can get in at 18, so this is kind of where we all congregate. It's fun. It's a healthy environment. These people are all my family. I was in there, probably only been in there for half an hour, maybe 40 minutes, still saying hi to people, still getting the night going. And then I heard shots, and that's not a noise that you mistake for anything else. Loud music, and it was still, I heard the shots and looked to where the shots were coming from. And saw a tall, probably 6'2", 6'3", figure dressed in dark clothing with a handgun. And he was opening fire on whoever was standing behind the front counter that you pay to get in. You pay the cover fee to get in.
Did he seem like he was targeting anyone in particular?
I probably saw him for maybe 2 seconds, 3 seconds at most, before I went into like protection mode, and it was whoever was right there behind the counter, and then in that close vicinity to the front door. After that, I grabbed as many people as I possibly could around me, everyone, and got them below the pool table that we were standing to, because that was the largest thing, until we hear the shots stop or pause. At that point, I knew he was reloading and that there's not much he was going to be able to do. So I jumped up and I looked down, further down along the back of the bar is all glass, and I saw someone throw a bar stool through the window and followed suit, and I threw a bar stool through the window, and we just pushed people towards the bar so that they weren't in the direct line of sight of him, and then just filed as many people, everyone that was there in that area, out through that back window. And then after we had gotten everyone, the few boys that were shuffling people through, we basically jumped out the window and then just pushed everyone down the side along the fence towards the parking lot.
It sounds like it was a chaotic scene in there, and by all descriptions it was. You were inside with him. What's your name, and when did you know that there was a shooting going on?
My name's Cole Knapp, and I was standing right next to him. I had a clear line of sight of the front. I saw somebody walk in, but it was normal because there's people coming in all night. And I saw him draw something. I wasn't really focused on him. As soon as the first shot went off, the first thought through my head was somebody had an M80 or something, but then I saw he had a firearm drawn, and he continued to fire at the lady at the front desk. And he continued.
Some have said that there might have been a smoke bomb or some sort of smoke screen involved.
I didn't see anything.
By the time that he may have deployed it, may not. We both looked at him for a split second, and then we were like, we're getting these people out of here, not worried about what he was doing. We were just made an exit and got everyone through there. So I definitely have heard that there was a bunch of smoke bombs, and people that stayed in there longer and hid in various spots of safety. There were smoke bombs for sure.
Have you been able to reconnect with all of your friends?
Most of them.
Most of them? No.
We're missing 2 close friends, and I've had no word on them for a good part of however long it's been. The last thing I heard from them was goodbye. They were going home.
Okay.
And
but you've tried to call.
Their other friends that they came with had just made it out the door, and they had stayed a little bit longer to say goodbye to me, catching up, and that's the last thing I heard from them was goodbye.
How many people were inside when the gunshots rang out?
Probably 100 to 130 people. A regular, probably a lighter night.
And describe the scene there. You say you pushed everybody down to the ground and got under the pool table?
So basically everyone kind of congregates in that area, and everyone went against the walls as far as they could and down as far as they could, because a lot of these people here are familiar with firearms. They know what situations happen, and so they know what to do. They know how to be the smallest target possible, and we were focused on shielding all the girls that we could to just get on top of everyone that didn't have any defense, which basically all of us didn't have anything. And so we waited there, making sure everyone was quiet, trying to draw as least amount of attention to us as we could. And then when that break came, we got through the glass and we pushed everyone to the street, and then just came back and we're pulling stragglers from the parking lot that were panicking and calling people and just telling them that you can't be here, it's not safe, that he's still in there, you need to get out.
By all accounts, there were dozens of shots fired. Do you have any indication of how many shots were fired? And did you see him targeting anyone in particular?
The only person I saw him targeting was the woman behind the front desk. After that, I did what he said, tried to get people out of there. The total amount that I heard was probably 30 total. There was an initial grouping of firing and then a pause to what I assume he was reloading. And after we had left the building, we were going back to find more people to get to safety. And there was what seemed to me as an exchange and that was the last we heard. So probably a total of 30.
And did you see that sheriff's deputy and that CHP officer go inside the bar?
When we were pushing out, he actually ran and grabbed his attention and told him what was happening, and he took off in that direction.
That was you?
There was a CHP officer that had pulled somebody over for a traffic stop right there. I got to him, screamed to him, saying there's a shooter in the bar. He kind of was like indifferent about it for a second, and then he realized I was being serious and then went over there, and that's when I went back to go find him.
Okay. And did you see him go inside the bar?
I did not see him go in, no.
Okay. So do you know if authorities, police were able to engage this gunman with gunfire?
I would assume with the amount of rounds that went back and forth that someone engaged with him. I don't know if anything was successful. We haven't heard anything. We've been here for hours and we haven't heard word on what actually has happened. Yeah, there's not much. We got people as far away as possible, and we pushed the boundaries of what was safe, just because I know where I'm going if I die, and I want to make sure that there's other people that had another chance to get themselves in line with where they need to be before they die.
We hear that the shooting lasted about 3 minutes. But
yeah, it was he was definitely not the fastest at reloading, which I was very thankful for, because it took us, I was sitting there shuffling people through for at least 15 or 20 seconds before I heard shots come again, and that was right when we got out the window.
Did the bar have security at all?
The bar has security, but they're not armed. A lot of them are regulars that come to the bar that have decided that they want to take on larger guys that they have training, but they're not armed. It's not a threat that we normally face.
They're just big guys that the average person would look at and say, I don't want to mess with that guy.
Did you see them engage this guy at all?
I did not, no.
Okay.
Everything was too chaotic before anything.
I didn't know who was who. I saw the people that were within arm's reach of me, trying to get them out. I know a lot of the guys that are security here, and I know at least a couple of them did everything in their power to make sure that other people didn't get hurt.
So all of this happened in 3 minutes. How long did it feel to you?
Like an eternity.
Seemed like hours.
Yeah. Everything.
I just kept trying to go back in there, getting yelled at to get the hell out of there, and I was really, as much stupid as it sounds, I really didn't want to listen to anyone. I just wanted to go back in there. My life is...
Were you able to see back inside there after all this was over?
The most I saw, we got closer than a majority of people were able to. The most I saw inside the bar was there was a line of sheriffs with rifles, and inside I saw what looked like just a tack light, flashlight shining across the bar, but that was the most I saw inside.
I mean, this is becoming a common occurrence here in this country. Did you ever think you'd be in this type of situation?
No, it's something that you see on the internet, on the news all the time now, and it's something that you look at and say, oh, that's tragic, and you pray for those that were there and who were affected, but you think to yourself, oh, that'll never happen to me.
What was it like inside the bar? Was it dark? Was it light?
The bar's darker. The outside is even darker, which bothered me more because I didn't know if it was more than a one-person attack and they were just waiting for everyone to get out. And so my goal was to keep everyone that I was with as hidden as possible, basically hiding them behind the cars and the trash cans and everything that we could. And my focus wasn't really to find out what was going on inside. It was to make sure that what was going on inside didn't affect what was the people that I was with.
I saw sheriff's investigators with flashlights right down the embankment there.
That's exactly where we jumped out, yeah.
So that's the bar, the building is right up against the on-ramp to the freeway here.
Yep.
Okay, so presumably they were looking for more victims in the bushes? I heard people were hiding.
Looking for more victims, or I would assume, yeah, the gunman who was hiding, he very well could have shed his dark clothing and dropped his gun and gone in with the rest of everyone else.
Well, you guys have been through a really traumatic experience. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me, and I'm glad that both of you are well, and I hope that you're able to get in touch with those two friends that you haven't been able to reach. Really good luck going forward, and thanks for talking to us. And for everybody who's just joining us right now, that this shooting occurred at about 11:30 last night, and this is a gentleman, a man who walked right into this bar and opened fire. He was described as wearing all black, a black face mask covering half of his face. It's not clear if he was targeting anyone in particular, what may have drawn him to this area in the first place. Police were on scene within minutes. A police officer entered, a sheriff's deputy, a sheriff's sergeant. He was shot. He has passed away. There are 11 other victims, and the gunman himself is dead.
Yeah, no motive known quite yet, Carter. Thank you so much. And just to give our viewers a sense of what transpired overnight, there was a mass shooting at the Borderline Bar and Grill in Thousand Oaks, Ventura. That's about 40 miles west of Los Angeles. It is the largest venue, the largest country dance hall and live music venue in Ventura County. More than 2,500 square feet of wide open dance floor. Wednesday nights in particular attract a larger crowd because that is when the establishment reaches out to college students. It is college night, which means that patrons as young as 18 are allowed and invited to come in. At about 11:30, shooting began that took place in about 3 minutes time. We know 11 have been killed, 11 students killed, and one sheriff, one sergeant, Ron Hillis. We did hear from Sheriff Jeff Dean, who paid tribute to Sergeant Ron Hillis, who was shot after he was one of the first responding to the shooting. He died later at the hospital. Let's hear what the sheriff had to say about his sergeant.
Ron was a hard-working, dedicated sheriff sergeant. He was totally committed. He gave his all, and tonight, as I told his wife, he died a hero because he went in to save lives, to save other people.
John, I have to say, Sheriff Jeff Dean has served for 41 years. He is just retiring. He's about to be replaced. His replacement was just announced a few days ago. And to see these sergeants and officials multiple time after time that we've covered these types of shootings become so emotional, saying they've never seen carnage like this in their careers, really says something about the state of where we are in this country when it comes to these mass shootings.
That's right. The sheriff described it as ripping at your heart. He described Ron Hillis as being on the force for 29 years, said he was going to retire in a year. They used to work out together. Just a tragic scene. We will have much more on this shooting at 7 a.m. on CBS this morning. You can also follow coverage on your local news on this CBS station and on our 24-hour streaming network, CBSN. This has been a CBS News special report. I'm John Dickerson with Bianna Goladriga, CBS News, New York.
For news 24 hours a day, go to CBSNews.com.